The movie has a dual storyline that takes place in both modern-day London and a city in the future when religious fervor is the dominant force. It tells the tale of four lost souls who are separated by two parallel universes and are headed for a deadly collision where one bullet will decide everyone's destiny. The film begins with a man changing his clothing and wearing a costume. Milo, a man in a black coat, is shown with a troubled look, checking his phone as if he is waiting for a call. He meets with his friend, another male, and talks about something, while an elderly man named Peter Esser locks his store door and walks down the street. Children of dysfunctional households who are clinically disturbed are involved in 3 of them. Emilia Bryant, a female art student, creates people taking their own life scenarios so she may film them for her art projects. The second features a young man, Milo, who was just dumped and believes he has once again found his boyhood sweetheart. The third and main character, Jonathan Priest, is a traumatized Iraq War veteran who imagines himself to be a masked vigilante living in Meanwhile City, a mythical place that resembles a cross between the Dickensian underworld of the Harry Potter books and a nightmare Gustave Doré engraving. The fourth character is a middle-aged Cambridge churchwarden looking for his lost son Peter Esser. A young man named Milo in London gets deserted by his fiancée at their wedding rehearsal. An old churchwarden from Cambridge named Peter Esser makes his way to London to look for his son David, who seems to be residing among the homeless people. Emilia Bryant, a student of art, records herself as she makes several attempts, such as drug overdoses and wrist slashes, but is always prevented from committing herself at the last minute by the emergency services she had already phoned. Emilia Bryant is shown as an art student in modern London. She is also emotionally unstable as a result of a difficult upbringing and her inability to engage with her mother. The maskman enters a bar, where he meets a bartender and places an order for whiskey. There is suspicious activity going on. The drink maker signals to the maskman in a few ways. The maskman meets with a strange man named Wormsnakes and asks him about a girl. The strange man describes the person to the maskman, but the maskman still wants the information. There was no information about the girl that the man knew. While the maskman is inquiring about the girl, a man dressed as a magician enters the bar with the intention of beating the maskman. However, the maskman beats the magician with a table and immediately exits while everyone, including the drink maker, is watching. Milo and his friend are seen talking about a female in a bar. Milo watches a female from behind as they leave the bar and stares at her for a bit before leaving by sitting in a car. Meanwhile, Emilia is watching Milo's footage and conducting research by playing it back and forth. She checks several images and documents while listening to some voice notes. On the other hand, the maskman is still running from several men who followed him out of the bar. They grow in number and assault the maskman, but the maskman fights them off one by pounding them. He tries to defend himself, but the man disguised as a magician grabs him, removes his mask, and drags him away. The maskman is actually Jonathan Priest, a devastated Iraq War veteran who fantasizes about being a masked vigilante. They put Jonathan Priest in a cell in a weird building. Their supervisor contacts Jonathan Priest and inquires about various matters. Jonathan Priest was someone they had been looking for a long time. Because the boss believes Jonathan Priest is a guy without direction, he assigned him a duty with the approval of soldiers and secretaries to commit a transgression and get rid of them as quickly as possible. Jonathan Priest agrees to undertake the work and asks the employer what he should do. The boss instructs his minions to take Jonathan Priest to the hospital and provide him with a job suit as well as his mask, stating that he may require it. Meanwhile, Milo continues to look for someone among a mass of people walking through a city. He sees the same girl he saw earlier, and Milo follows her to a strange structure. When he enters, he finds an old guy and others staring at him strangely. Milo is told by an elderly guy about the girl who walks upstairs. Milo, on the other hand, gives them a strange look and walks away. In the following scene, Emilia Bryant is seen getting ready. She put on makeup and sits in front of a computer, talking to herself. She had previously filmed herself and talked to herself. Emilia Bryant contacts an ambulance and instructs them to arrive as quickly as possible. Emilia Bryant turns the camera to the bed and falls asleep. Jonathan Priest is taken to the hospital within the strange building for a checkup. When he arrives, he encounters a weird woman who is about to execute medical treatments on Jonathan Priest. When Jonathan Priest inquires about the process, the woman claims that it is minor. When Jonathan Priest realizes there is something wrong, he begins beating the bodyguards and leaves the building by opening the lock. Milo sees the girl with golden hair who appears everywhere Milo goes. Milo gets a vision of a girl and a boy playing together. They're most likely him and the girl he's looking for since his youth. Meanwhile, the hospital's rescue team arrives at Emilia Bryant's house and begins inspecting her while she lies on the bed. The doctors decide to admit Emilia Bryant to the hospital after examining her. As she is being taken to the hospital, she has flashbacks of herself reaching out to a man seated on a bench. Before leaving his house in search of his son, Peter Esser is pictured on the phone with someone. He goes to church and asks the cleaner named Pastor Bone about his son, presenting him a photo of him. The man looks at the picture and gives it a strange look before saying that he has never seen a man like him. Peter Esser expresses his thanks and leaves the church. On the other hand, Jonathan Priest is seen looking for someone at a place where all types of people are present. He goes to the front desk to ask to speak with Wormsnakes, who works in the kitchen, but the receptionist asks him to take off his mask so that he may register, and he declines. He finds the strange man he had seen earlier in the bar and tells the receptionist where he is. Without Wormsnake's knowledge, Jonathan Priest follows him, arrives at his home, and waits for him. When Wormsnakes see the maskman there, they become terrified. Because Wormsnakes refused to give him the address of a girl Jonathan Priest needed, Jonathan Priest took off his mask and beat Snakeworms. Jonathan Priest snatched the paper on which the address was written and left from there. Meanwhile, religion reigns supreme in the city. Everyone must have faith, whether it be Christianity, Buddhism, seven-day nail varnishers, or washing machine purists. Jonathan Priest is the city's only atheist, making him an outlaw. He is on the hunt for a little girl who was kidnapped by the individual, the leader of the Duplex Ride cult. He encounters Wormsnakes, his source, who not only informs him that the girl has passed away, but also betrays him to the religious authorities. Jonathan Priest runs to the roofs, but is apprehended and imprisoned. Pastor Bone visits Amelia at the hospital where she is being treated. Amelia Bryant does not know him, yet he knows everything about her. He informs Amelia Bryant that what she is doing is bad for her, but when he begins to explain to her certain things he knows, she stops him and asks him to go. Depressed about his rejection, Milo begins to see the figure of Sally, a friend he had in primary school who keeps disappearing when he approaches her. He then discovers that she works as a teacher at the same school, and they agree to meet later in the week at a restaurant. When he informs his mother about this wonderful occasion, she argues that Sally was an imaginary companion he made up when he was 6 years old, after his father passed away. Peter Esser locates Bill Wasnick, a former soldier who met David while fighting in Iraq. Bill alleges that 4 years ago, David approached him at a bar about a deceased girl, inciting a brawl, and being overcome by police on the pub roof. He also describes being beaten up a few days earlier by David, who gave him the address for someone. Peter Esser goes to the Army mental hospital managed by Mr. Tarrant, who informs him that David was ready to be freed when he overpowered the orderlies and eliminated one of them while refusing to wear a tagging device. David seems to blame his father for his younger sister's accident-related passing, which occurred soon before he got home from Iraq. Peter Esser just puts his trust in God rather than providing Tarrant with the address Bill had provided him. Her professor is not really impressed with Amelia Bryant's videos. After attending counseling sessions with her mother Margaret, she eventually confronts her. During these discussions, Margaret and Amelia Bryant's estranged father has been a frequent topic of contention. Apparently, Amelia Bryant's father did in fact sexually assault her, and her mother moved her away when he was abroad on business. After giving her mother and daughter a hug, Amelia Bryant returns home. Peter Esser goes to the address and presses the buzzer marked Franklin as per the address, but it is actually the buzzer to Amelia Bryant's flat. She tries to tell him through the intercom that he has the wrong place, but not realizing that it is not his son, Peter Esser says that he will be waiting in the restaurant opposite. A man then arrives at Amelia Bryant's flat. After introducing himself as John, he breaks in and, armed with a rifle, takes up a sniper's position at the window. Through the lens, Jonathan Priest can see his nemesis, the individual, in the restaurant. When he sees the tears fall from his eyes and he puts down the gun and asks Amelia Bryant to go away. When Amelia Bryant tries to leave, he bombs himself and Amelia Bryant. When Milo himself turns up at the restaurant, he confronts Sally about being nothing more than a creation of his imagination. She advises him to get over his dependence on her and find a genuine partner. Milo kisses her as she prepares to leave. Peter Esser proceeds to inform the ambulance drivers about Milo's wound. When Amelia Bryant meets the hurt Milo in the pouring rain, they approach one another since they fell in love at first sight.